What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Not really sure where my co-host people are, so hopefully they'll show up. I think we might not have Rody today. We knew it was going to be a tough day for him to make it out, but Sheet's usually right on time, so should be here anytime. Yeah, just waiting on that one. So yeah, it's an interesting slate today. I'm pretty spread out. Sheets, is that Sheets?
It is.
All right, how's it going, man?
Pretty good.
Good. You look a little warmer than I am today. I'm trying to heat up with some coffee.
Yeah, MSL, excuse me, Scott Pendergrast emailed me suggesting that when we do these chats that we spend the first like 2 minutes just like saying hello instead of getting right into it because there's some sort of delay or something like that.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah. So figured we would do that. I did hear that that Rody was going to be joining us.
Oh, I thought he was a questionable, a Q tag.
I did see a Q tag, and I have to apologize, by the way, to everybody for yesterday. So I'll make this up to you in some form, but I had this idea that whoever was present in the live chat yesterday, before whatever, as long as they were subscribers, I have this idea of doing this kind of true DFS contest, like a DFS contest with some added money, and there was going to be like a free roll that I was going to set up, and we just couldn't figure out how to allocate it, but I was going to give a 20% free roll in the pick six I was doing yesterday, which we talked about on air. I just couldn't quite figure out how to segment it, who to use. Turns out I hit it for 17,000. So sorry, everybody. It's my own fault. So in my head, I kind of owe the prize pool for these contests like 3,400. I have to figure out how to accomplish that. But I definitely want to do it. Maybe we should do it on like a Thursday or something, and make Thursdays kind of like that day that we do extra shit. You know, like we do like the contest. We do it, but what we do, we'll have some fun. Like whatever money that I kind of could throw in an ad over the course of however long we do it. The rule is that whoever wins takes that free roll piece down as long as they beat you and me and Rody. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like if you so or something like that.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Or the bet, or whoever, or if we win, whoever's the next best, or something like that. But we'll figure something out. But yeah, yesterday I saw you had something. I had a good lineup going in the FanDuel big one actually for a while. I was in the top 10 or so. And then that kind of faded a little bit. I saw that you had something good going in DraftKings.
I had a legit chance.
Yeah.
That the snow could not have come at a worse time for me. You know what I mean? Because the scoring was going crazy and it was all looking great. And I needed the last kick to either be missed or I needed them to score a touchdown on that, because basically I had everybody, the only players I had used in my millionaire, I only played 6 lineups in the millionaire maker or whatever. I was less than I thought I had played, but no, maybe 7. But I look over and my only guys that I had used from the games before the game last night were what's his name? Jefferson. I'm sorry, not Jefferson. Osborne, who was 7% and the highest scoring player outside of Josh Allen on the slate. I'd used Osborne, Dalvin Cook, and Pittman, and Dobbins, but I had everybody else left. I had Mostert, Knox, Gabe Davis, Allen. I also had the Colts defense in that one. So I basically had the near nuts, and I had Jalen Waddle at 14% in the big one, but Jalen Waddle and what's his name combinations were very, very scarce. So I ended up 72nd, but it was like one of those where every play I'm jumping 100 spots. You know what I mean? I needed to get about 15 more fantasy points to get there. But in the millionaire maker, I'm sorry, in the Wildcat, even with Jonathan Taylor, I played one lineup. I finished 30th with the one lineup, and that was another one that looked like it was going to top 10 or come close to it if you could get one more play out of Waddle or one touchdown out of Gabe Davis or Knox. So it was kind of cool. It was fun to have a nice little Saturday sweat. Another, hey, I'll take it 4 days in a row, almost tripling your money. There's certain ways to win at GPPs. That's not usually the way I win, but I'll take it. Hopefully it's leading into the big one today. But it was kind of a fun slate.
What do you think of this, Mark? So Mark's in here, by the way, on the in the chat, and he's saying,
Scott.
Scott. Sorry, Scott. And he was saying that, yeah, we want to chat about this. I welcome your advice on this about about how to deal with this with the contest I want to do here. I like the free roll stuff that kind of and kind of like that free roll pile that piles up, and maybe do it like once a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I wonder if we can know who's in these chats that's actually a subscriber. That would be, or we
Yeah,
just
yeah,
make it available to just subscribers. We could
yeah.
just do that too.
That's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
we'll
yeah,
do.
yeah. So that's what we're gonna do.
It's actually pretty easy.
Yeah,
Um,
well, yeah.
to work on that. And I've got a whole list of things like that. And probably some of them are going to take until the new year to fully take shape, partly because I'm going to be moving most of next. Well, I'm going to be moving. I've got my kid for 3 days next week. It's very going to be a scattered DFS thing. I'm going to make sure to do at least pop in for shows and show my early thoughts and stuff. But it's going to be a little bit spotty because I've got a few things that I've got to do, and I've got to move my stuff from LA to Santa Barbara, and just a little bit of a hassle.
And Mark, if you want to chime in on this too, so I go back and forth with this. So we have this this background that we use for our YouTube videos, which I use for sometimes. Like you see, I have the True DFS kind of like green screen kind of in the background, and I go back and forth whether I like that or without it. You know, if it's in, it seems a little more, I guess, professional. But without it, it makes it me seem like more like an actual person. You know what I mean? Like it kind of goes both ways. I mean, do you want to see me with a True DFS thing, or you know, or do you want to see with my kind of here like my stuff like in the background? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. It's an interesting question. Figured I'd ask you from a marketing and a kind of a layout perspective. What to do.
Well, let us know. Let's jump. So go ahead. It's good.
Yeah, and then the last thing is that yeah. So Mark, what this is Restream. So Restream, what it does is it puts the same feed out on both my Twitch, my own YouTube channel, which I don't even think anybody watches, whatever, and also the True DFS one. We could do as many as, I don't know, many different channels and something like that. So yeah. So that again, I do want to get your opinion on this. I want to reach out to Mark too. I mean, I also want to spruce up the videos. I want to put music on them. There's all this stuff that I want to do. And then
well, the good news is, and also we'll have some bankroll more to do it with, which we can talk about offline.
But the bankroll isn't the issue.
Well, right? It is partly because having people implement and do all the work, because a lot of that stuff does take time, and some of it is a little bit, you know, for us to learn it. Is it better if, you know, we'll talk about that stuff.
I have a kid who I coach basketball who reached out to me just the other day, coincidentally. He's like graduating Utica soon. He was talking to me about his media company does. He helps with social media. I'm like, well, I could use some help with that, you know, whatever. And we'll see if that, you know, see if he wants to do something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you want to talk about the slate?
So, I mean, right off the bat, there's a question which was asked, which I think is an important thing and sort of leads into some things, but we'll talk about the things that we like. But the question being, what would you incorporate? He said St. Brown, but you could throw like 5 Chicago wide receivers into that conversation. I think Pringle probably is the best one, I guess. Maybe you could argue St. Brown. It's really hard to know. I think mostly you're playing Kmet and Montgomery if you're playing that game on either side of it. I personally have a lot of Fields lineups, and they're mostly with Kmet. I'm also running them back with a lot of Devontae Smith. He's my highest owned other one. I do have some Quez Watkins, and I do have a decent amount of AJ Brown as well. I also have some Hurt stacks with both Smith and AJ Brown, and some with Smith and Watkins. But mostly I do have, it feels very strange because I have I'm very spread out today. So my highest, more than I like to be, my highest owned quarterbacks are all going to be around 20%. And those are going to be Burrow, Fields, and Herbert, followed by just barely by Lawrence and Hurts. And then I have like some Mahomes, some Dak, a couple of Brady stacks, and I'm deciding what I want to do, if I want to do anything with Detroit and the Jets, or Vegas and New England from the passing game side of it, because, you know, really cheap Mac Jones. So I'm just sort of open to all of that stuff, but those are like my main stacks are going to be the Chicago game, the Cincinnati side of things, because they always are. But I really like the I actually thought that it'd be even chalkier, but I really like the idea of just getting way overweight on this Chargers game. You have the strengths of both teams, basically what the other team can't stop. The Chargers can't stop the run, the Tennessee can't stop anything through the air. So I really like the idea of being overweight on that game. I do think it's going to be popular, but I don't think people are playing Westbrook-Akine, who I'm mixing into some lineups. I threw Chris Conley into a lineup or two. I have some Robert Woods just to get a little bit off of the chalk. And then my highest owned tight end is going to be a Conwo, but I think you could also go and just as easily take a shot on Austin Hooper and hope the touchdown variance goes on his side. They're pretty close, those two. But that whole game just feels very stackable. Also, it's a late game, so we can do some swapping around. Same with the Cincinnati game. But the potential for the quarterbacks especially, but for everybody in the Chicago Philly game, nobody can stop Philly. Chicago can't stop anyone. Even Philly will give up points. So I feel like that's a game I really want to be overweight on. So that's sort of my core of what I'm doing. It's a little more spread out than usual. How about you in terms of stacks and things like that?
Okay. At some point, I want to go backwards. I want to just discuss kind of some of the injuries that are still, at least in my opinion, yet to be determined.
That's good. I'm happy to talk about it because I've got pivots for every injury situation.
Right. First of all, you mentioned the Bengals. This the T. Higgins thing. I want some kind of clarity. Whatever that is. The New England thing, it seems as though those two guys are trending to play, Ramondre Stevenson and Jacoby Myers.
Yep.
I would say that, it is a late game. So you probably want to just, leave some stuff open there. The other injury game, I guess we'll talk about this when we go to receivers. Actually, we will wait until we talk about receivers. So with respect to your question about the stacks, I actually am sort of spread out too. And it really depends on the site. Like my highest owned stack is going to be Kansas City. But it's not by that much.
Right.
And then I got the normal dudes. I got some Philly, like you said, Dallas. I keep saying the Clippers, LAC, New England. Saints, Las Vegas. I'm kind of deaning it up. In some of these other spots. I think I don't really have a really strong take on any really big stack today. This is what I did. I also made sure today I do have my normal, complement of like a quarterback plus two with one run back and quarterback plus one, but one run back. But I did leave room for a little bit of funny business. You know what I mean? Like some non-traditional stacks and non-traditional setups, just because it's going to be probably a lower scoring slate, I think. So yeah. you could have lineups which are a little different, but I have Kansas City. But I would like to just emphasize when I mentioned that on different sites I'm different. I think in one of them, let me just make sure of this. Yeah, I have a decent amount of Philly on FanDuel, actually, more so than on DraftKings. I also have, for those of you that play Yahoo, I have Philly as my highest owned stack on Yahoo. I'll just kind of throw that out there. And part of it is on Yahoo specifically, and actually that's not true. I think on FanDuel also, I'm getting for my Chicago thing, I'm getting a decent amount of David Montgomery. But we'll talk about running back, I guess when we get to it. But so to answer your question, Kansas City for me, and then I guess we'd say Philly is my next highest owned. And I didn't get to Chicago as you know what I mean? Like I just have kind of pieces of Chicago as kind of like run backs and stuff like that. I didn't get the Chicago stack in and of itself.
Yeah, I just can't resist. I think Fields has the highest ceiling of any player, so I just have to go for it especially because the game script should lend it to where they really need him to go crazy too. And okay. I'm sorry if I'm taking just a second here. I'm trying to make sure. I didn't realize that FanDuel had their $250 million for first tournament going today. So
yeah, I'm actually awake, dude. I played 2 of those.
I'm going to play 3.
Yeah.
So there you go. So one of us is definitely winning it then.
We got 5 chances. How can we lose?
How can we lose? Only 13,000 other people, man. Come on.
5 chances. I mean, like, really? And if we win this, they're going to say, well, of course you had like freaking a full 3 entries.
Yeah. It's real easy to
I
win.
mean, I can win. I can win 2 if I can play 3 entries.
But yeah, that's a nice little tournament. I didn't even notice that, so I'm gonna have to jump back over to
Yes.
that. Why don't you talk a little bit about? You started talking about some running backs, and it's another week where I have some guys I really like, but I think that it's spread out after the very top guys. So who are you most overweight on? Do you feel like?
On DraftKings, my highest owned running back it's tied between 2. One is Josh Jacobs, the New England game, and the other is Zonovan Knight for the Jets against Detroit. Those are my 2 top owned, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, let's say 4 others that are next. I have Latavius Murray, Travis Etienne, Alvin Kamara, and Derrick Henry. And then the next only other guy I would have over 10% after that would be Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah. Okay. So in the Stevenson, if he's out, so what I was going to say about when you were talking about the possibility of some of those guys being out in the afternoon games, if I feel for the guys that are questionable like this, Stevenson's very easy. You just switch it over to Connor if you have to. You know what I mean? But some of these other guys like Myers, or if some other guys are out, just having multiple guys in the later games in a majority of my lineups is sort of just a strategy that I'm going to go with. As far as running backs go, my current ownerships, like I have about 30% Knight. I've got 20 some odd percent of Murray, which is probably going to turn into like 5%. I've got like 20 some odd percent of Kamara. I'm throwing Najee Harris, David Montgomery, because I feel like after the Henry, Eckler, Jacobs top tier, I feel like there's a lot of potential for a lot of guys. I threw Pollard into some lineups. I threw Zeke into some. I like Etienne, and I'm way overweight on Pacheco. I feel like he gets the running script from the KC game, and that could be a full half of mostly rushes because that game could be 30 points at halftime. Of course, you see what happens. That doesn't mean it's a win. Got the biggest comeback in history yesterday. But I do think that you're going to see a lot more Pacheco today running the ball in the second half, and it sucks because I kind of wanted to play McKinnon, but I think Pacheco's just going to get the carrying part of the game. McKinnon will get the passing work, so that's what I ended up doing. Trying to not in all of my lineups because it's really hard to do financially, but trying to force in Jacobs or Devontae Adams is always a good idea. Period. And then by the way, if Stevenson's out, you can always switch over to one of the backs for New England. What I would say is huge warning that you might see like 4 different guys getting carries for New England if he's out, Stevenson. So it's not like you're going to have like that's just what New England has always done. And it's because Stevenson is so exceptional that he's gotten the job fully to himself. But that could easily turn into somebody else. That could easily turn into like 4 other guys. It is a good rushing matchup, though, for what it's worth. All right, let's talk about wide receiver sheets. Some values maybe you like, some guys you're overweight on, some what's it called? One of the weird things about this slate is like partly makes you want to play Mac Jones is Aguilar and Aguilar and Jacoby Myers are both top 5 projection guys, and they are 3,400 and 4,700. Mac Jones is 5K, so you could actually and then you could actually play Jacobs and Devontae on the other side if you want to, but I would probably just play one guy and then just spend up elsewhere where I want to. I think I've talked myself into a little bit of a stack there. But how about some cheap wide receivers, and then who do you like sort of more to the top?
Yeah, I had to pare down my ownership of Chris Moore. He was just showing up as too big of a percentage of my lineups, and when you have a real cheap guy at 25% ownership, I really don't want to get over. I don't want to get too overweight on that type of situation. But from a projection perspective, I mean, he rated to be a really the best point per dollar play. But I pared him down to 20%. I'll probably be maybe a little bit below the field on that. But my top overall, I guess, is right now is 20% of. And again, I didn't really want to get much more than 20% of any wide receiver, any receivers today. Is Jacoby Myers right now? Obviously, hope he plays. but if he plays, I do like that. And then the next group I have, I guess, Christian Kirk from Jacksonville. Then a guy who looks to be kind of low owned, but I'm getting a decent amount of like a full 15% of Drake London from Atlanta.
I like him a lot too.
And then, you're back. I'm probably with the field about 15% on CeeDee Lamb. And then the Aguilar, who you mentioned. And then the only guys over 10% they have aside from that are, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, and
You really love Olave.
I mean, he's I like
No,
the
I like him too. I wasn't trying to criticize. I'm just throwing it
it's a
out there.
dome. It's a dome. It's he's
Yeah,
young. He's got upside. And then the opposite of Chris Olave, I have Jarvis Landry.
right. The
So
exact opposite.
so some of that as well. And then there's other cheapos from that game too. Like Zacharias at 3,400. That's I don't see him being owned all that much. And I guess guys I'm under on that I thought that I was gonna have, I'm supposed to have more of is these Chargers, right? I'm only getting I'm not getting too much of. Well, maybe I am. I have to check the flex too. No, I'm getting a decent amount of Keenan now, and I take that back. I'm getting a decent amount of Keenan now, and that's pretty much my wide receiver pool.
Yeah, I really like the Chargers wide receivers because of the game stacks that I have. I have like 25% AJ Brown. I have like 35% Devontae Smith, so I'm well overweight on those guys. I have way too much Michael Gallup right now, like 45%, and I'm not going to stick with that, but I do feel like Gallup is going to have a really big day today. That passing defense, and it's been touched on by BBF in the chat, by Jacksonville has really, really, really been bad. So I like the idea of getting to Gallup at but probably not 45%. I don't think I need that much of them. Very high on the Cincinnati receivers, especially Chase. He's my highest owned of those guys. Very overweight on the. I like you. I have a lot of Zay Jones, and then I've got some Christian Kirk, but more Zay Jones. I've got some CeeDee Lamb, as I mentioned, that pass defense, and that the game stacks are sort of calling to me there. But Chargers, Jacksonville,
well,
the ones that are scaring me not to be on a little bit more are. I think there's something to be said for the Elijah Moore play today. There's a pivot off of your other Moore, but he's a little cheaper. There's something about Hunter Renfrow should be back today. He's 3,800, just worth considering.
I've got what I want to discuss with you. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a whole thing. So there's a situation where you have a team who has a really, really bad defense, and the opposing team is missing all of its wide receivers, except for one. And you have Jerry Jeudy at 6,100 against Arizona, and then you have a 3K flat Brandon Johnson. Everybody else is out. Cortland Sutton is out. Hinton is out. Hamler's on the IR. So you have the tight end Dulcich,
yeah,
and then you also have this Brandon Johnson. I mean, I know Denver and Brett Rippon are not exactly Elway and whatever.
Good
matchup.
But
Arizona is certainly not the 86 Bears either.
right.
And there's just they're just Jerry Jeudy is probably too cheap at 6,100 if you want to know the truth. But Brandon Johnson at 3K, if he's actually on the field, I mean, against a team that can't stop anything. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like that, and Dulcich also. I mean, but none of these guys are really showing up to such a degree that I'm playing the late slate just so that I can play more of these guys.
I like that idea, Sheets. I think it's a really good way to frame it. I also think that if you play the full slate, that while these might be long shot plays, these minimum costish guys, it does really open up your salary on this kind of a slate to where you can spend, because there are some really big spends that could put up like 40s. Like I mentioned, Devontae Adams. I think that Jamar Chase is obviously the other most logical one. I think I mentioned Derrick Henry obviously before, but like Derrick Henry is another spend up that you want to try and get to. So I think that finding that value really could be valuable today. And I haven't found stuff that I'm comfortable with, but it's okay to be a little uncomfortable. It wasn't like, I liked KJ Osborne yesterday. I didn't expect him to 10x his price. And that's, I like this question from Scott at Poker X Factor. Like Darren Waller's coming back today. That actually it's a reason why I was able to get off of a little bit of the other guys. But I actually like Darren. I think you should take some shots with Darren Waller. He's 4,100, which has never in the history of DFS basically been the case for Darren Waller. And I don't know how much they're going to run with him. And he has literally like almost no projection, as if he's going to split time, which may be the case. But if you want to gamble on somebody with upside, I know we're jumping up positions here, but like, I love the idea of getting to some Darren Waller. And I guess I'll just jump into tight ends with that. I have a Conwu the most of any tight end right now. I'm way below the field on Kelsey, and although this feels like the kind of game where you let Kelce get his 3 touchdowns, so I'm a little nervous about that. I like Dalton Schultz. I like Dulcich. I like Jordan Akins. And I really like Evan Ingram. I feel like no one's going to chase. I'll chase. You know what I mean? I believe he's talented. They're going to have to throw the ball in this game. So I love Evan Ingram at 3,800. I don't expect him to put up 40 again, but I do think he could have a good game. Oh, and also Hunter Henry is the last one I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
How about you for tight ends?
Yeah, so I was getting I was getting a whole bunch of Kelce, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah.
And just because of the possible blowout risk, I guess that's the best way to describe it. I had to pare it back a little bit. So let me just see. So I ended up, I think, similar to you. I still do have like a decent amount of Kelce, but my top other guys are Dalton Schultz and Okongwu.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably going to end up having a decent amount of the Dulcich. I mean, I just think that's.
Yeah, I think it's a good play too. I think that's going to be a really good play. The thing with Kelce that's interesting is he could win the position by so much. So I get the argument for playing him. Like, I mean, comparison wise, you have like Michael Gallup. I'm sorry, not Michael Gallup. You have the other one, CeeDee Lamb, like around a similar price range and at receiver. But like the difference is like Kelce could like double everyone else's score very easily. And that case you would want him. What drives me off of him a little bit is this 20% ownership. I just don't think in this kind of a game script, it's a good idea to try to do that. And I also think they're going to have success doing whatever they want, which could mean a huge game for Kelce, but it could mean like Sky Moore Day or something. You know what I mean? It could be Christian Watson. It could be, again, I like Pacheco in that game. I think that he's going to have plenty of success running the ball against that team.
Do you think that that Darren Waller being in the game, being back, takes anything away from like Devontae Adams' goal line work, maybe, or even Josh Jacobs's?
I think there's potential that it could, but I wouldn't overrate it because they've been looking to Moreau quite a bit too. So I think it changes a little bit, but I don't think it wasn't like it maybe gave me like a quarter less of those guys than I would have had, maybe a fifth. But I still am playing a pretty good chunk of them. What are your thoughts on just real quick? Because I've touched on it, and I feel like the projections are trying to force you into playing this play that I was never going to make before, the Mac Jones and then the Vegas stack. Can you get behind that at all, just because of the price of Aguilar and Myers?
Yeah. I have no problem with that.
Yep. Okay.
What's wrong? I mean, I don't know. Vegas doesn't really stop anybody, and
nope, they don't.
I mean, I'm not getting to too much of it, but I'm getting some.
It's such not a me type of thing to do. I'll tell you what, if what's his name was out, if Ramondre was out, I would be all over this.
Well, what about Ramondre, by the way? I mean, why are we not just playing him?
I am playing.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm playing him, and he just turns into a number of other guys if he's out. You know what I mean? Mainly in the afternoon slate, the direct pivot is going to be James Conner, who I don't love as much as the field does, but I'm happy to make the switch if I have to. Stevenson just gets so much work for them. He does everything, and also like if he's in, probably less. And you had a really good first half of your guys were really good. They did play the first half, and you have a New England stack. Maybe you do want to get off of it a little bit because Ramondre does take up a lot of that work. Whereas if he's out, I think you're going to see the passing game just a ton more. That's just what my personal take.
You know who I'm getting more of, I think, running back wise on FanDuel than I thought I was going to, and that's going to be James Conner actually.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense over there too. Also, a guy who's better on the ground, not catching it through the air. We still don't have official word, and Scott just brought it up about Kadarius Toney. I actually think if Kadarius Toney plays, he's a really good tournament play because I do think people are off of it. It's sort of a funny price, but also he's like, this is the kind of game that you'd think you'd want to get him going because he's been hurt since they got him, and they got him going in the first game, which was a more competitive game against Jacksonville. maybe they run some designs for him. They gave him even a couple rush attempts last time. I think if Tony is in, I think he's a really good play, but we probably will find that out in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, so I'll make sure that if he's in, then I'll just buy some of you on State Kings because I'm not doing it. So I'll get my exposure through having someone else play him. That'll be my.
You like the Chief stacks, but you won't play Tony. And before, when Tony was over there, he was like, you were the first person I remember mentioning him. He's going to be the fantasy. You were all into it, and then you changed your mind. What's going on?
Because first of all, they literally ran him out of town at freaking New York. Right.
New York runs every wide receiver out of town.
No, but apparently he had a bad attitude, like, and all this shit, all this stuff. And all I know is that he hasn't been on the field. I don't know. He's going to have to beat me, unfortunately.
Tony is active, FYI. So I'm going to, what that means for me is that means I take a tiny bit of my Michael Gallup and turn it into Kadarius Toney.
All right.
It's not too big of a crazy thing. Just, I do think that there is something to that play. I really do.
Unfortunately, what I'm going to have to do today, this is something I'm not used to. I'm going to actually have to come up with a good lineup. I mean, I'm going to have to actually come up with my favorite because I'm playing this FanDuel thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm playing the 250. So I actually have to come up with a good football lineup on my own. Without saying, I got some of this, some of this, some of that. I actually have to come up with something good. I don't know how do you do that? Let me just see. Yeah, I gotta figure that out. You know what team we talked about earlier in the week that I thought I was gonna play. I guess I'm just not. Is this Jacksonville staff?
I'm into the Jacksonville thing. I've been sold a little bit on the Jacksonville side. I like both sides of it though. Prices are nice. There's lots of ways you could stack it. It's kind of a fun all around game to stack. I feel like. I have to run in a few minutes, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But Sheets, let's talk about defenses real quick, and then we'll do a sum up to end these things. The Broncos are popping off the shelf, and I know you hate this defense thing. I totally disregarded to one of the good decisions. I disregarded the spreading the defenses yesterday, and I played the Colts everywhere. But didn't have enough of the other side, and I don't know, defense against my own offense. But I do think the Broncos are I think they're a really good option. I think they're going to be crazy popular. Trying to get less of them as it is right now. I think one way you can do that is play the Bucks. Even though we like Burrow, Burrow does take sacks and throw interceptions. So I like that idea. I like the Titans. Same thing with Herbert. Herbert will throw picks. And he'll also hold the ball too long. It takes a ton of sacks. So I like the Titans at 2,200. The Lions are interesting at 3K. I'm getting to a little bit of the Jags, but mostly I'm spending all the way down at defense. How about you?
Boy, I mean, you hit them right on the head. I mean, the Broncos look like the best play, but I'm not going to play more than 20% of any defense when I'm mass multi-entering. I might, and then you hit the other guys. Like my next two favorites are Bucks and Titans, literally just like that. One that you didn't mention, you mentioned the Lions part, but I think the Jets on the other side is just as good. But another one is the Panthers at 3,300. I'm getting some of that. But after Broncos, I have at 20% right now by force. Right, I would probably end up with 45 otherwise. After that, I have nobody over 10% except for the Bucks, which I have to 10.7%. So my approach to defense is exactly the same. Just try not to take too big a stand.
Yeah, and Eric's saying something in chat. He said play the Bears defense. Now here's the thing: is the Bears defense looks like it makes some sort of a they're 2,300 or whatever. But how do I play them over the Titans? Jalen Hurts has thrown 3 interceptions this season. 7. What's his name is throwing 7. Talk about taking sacks. Herbert takes more sacks. It's just really hard for me to talk myself into it. And the Bears defense has been the least productive defense in all of football. So I would just rather get to defenses that, like the Tennessee 2 weeks ago, we're talking about them as one of the best defenses in the NFL. Now it's like everybody wants to just hunt Tennessee. It's really weird how things change quickly. But yeah, I do think you're mostly spending down for defenses. I think that's sort of the overall thing. I've got probably a little too much of the same defenses that I'm going to have to de-chalkify a little bit.
Yeah.
I hope the Bears beat Philly today. I think it's certainly possible. It's not an ideal situation. Lawrence active. We already said that Tony's active. All right, Sheeta, what else before we get out of here? I'm sorry, I'm making it a
Yeah,
little bit
so
quick.
a couple of things, just to kind of summarize, like, you know, my I don't say my stands, but my kind of additions to the slate, I guess. And then I'll do a couple of administrative notes. First of all, I'm going to be forcing in, as I mentioned, some of those Denver receivers. I'm not getting to literally any of them in my projections. I honestly don't know why. So I'm going to probably force in 10% of those of all those guys. Dulcich, Judy, and Brandon, whatever his name is, Brandon Anderson, Brandon Johnson, whatever his name is. Also, I'm going, just so you guys know, I am going to be playing the late slate. And in a weird way, like they might not even be on the late slate because the late slate has like a lot of good options, right? So I'm going to be adding some to that as well. So I'm going to be playing the late slate. So that's my additions to this slate. But just to some announcements, I am going to be putting up sheets for the NBA and NHL that those start at 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. today. And I'm also obviously going to be putting up showdown sheets for the Redskins for the Commanders and Giants tonight.
Yep.
We're going to do that. The other thing, I have to apologize. This was really weird. You know, I didn't even think about this. So when we have like a single showdown slate, I upload the showdown slate projections in their own sheet, in their own thing, right? And for whatever reason, when there was like a 3-game slate like yesterday, and I decided I was going to play the showdown slates also, I got a little lazy and I said, okay, it's not a big deal. I'll just use the same projections from the classic slates and use them for my showdown builds. And the only thing I had to do is like just make sure to not like exclude like guys that like have less than 3 fantasy points that kind of want them in there. And then when I built it, and then I'm looking at my results, I'm seeing that Chase McLaughlin's like going nuts for the Colts. And I'm saying, why do I have 0 of him? And the reason why is because the kickers aren't in the classic slates, so I didn't upload any of them.
Shit, that sucks.
So I had 0 kickers in any.
Oh no! Oh,
so it's okay. So I learned. I ended up winning. I ended up winning in showdown. I cashed in both in 2 of the 3 222. So it did okay, but I just forgot that was going to be the case. So whenever you have these like these Saturday small slates, I have to remember that if I'm going to put up showdown stuff, to remember to include the kickers in that type of stuff. So those are all the public service announcements, I guess. Yep. And
let's have a good slate today, guys. Please like and stuff before you get out of here. Adam says someone's got to take something down for Hanukkah. Absolutely, let's do it.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's make some money, and I'll be in Discord all day if anything comes up, and I'm sure Rody will be as well. Sheets, good luck today, my friend, and we will hopefully be talking later today in chat Discord about how somebody from True DFS.
Can I do my Rody impression? Can I do that?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, you get to take us out.
All right, guys, let's get it. Right.